as much as it feels like you are in that hole and you are all by yourself and no one could possibly be as broken or damaged as you, there are folks that are out here that are walking among you that have been there and are literally willing to sit in the hole with you. Um, and that's where, conversations like this are really impactful.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness podcast. We are hitting on a very important topic, one that resonates with more than they'd like to admit. But this month we are talking about alcohol addiction and the most important part, which is recovery. So whoever's listening to this, no matter where you're at in your journey, know that it's temporary and you can absolutely function and move through it. And we have some really awesome guests joining the conversation. They're going to share a little bit of their story, and we're going to provide as much useful information and insights as we can. Oh, and we have a bonus guest in the corner. So with that, Vance, I'm going to have you introduce yourself first because you have an extra little special guest there.
This is Coconut, a 2-year-old French bulldog that we rescued in February, that we are in the process of hopefully making into some sort of like therapy dog or emotional support dog. I mean, look at her.
I
We don't want to have
mean,
this dog,
if
right?
anybody's listening on like Spotify or any of the things, go onto the YouTube. It's worth your time to go on YouTube and look at the little face.
Yeah. That's what we say every day. We pick her up and we're like, she doesn't get any uglier. So yeah,
Oh,
she's a
so
cutie.
cute. Very
Um,
cute.
so hi everybody. My name is Vance Row, and I say public safety professional because I retired from the town of Ocean City in as of June 1st of 2025. I was a police officer for 22 years, and I was a dispatcher for 3. And the reason for the split was because I got hurt in the process of being a police officer, so I couldn't be a cop anymore. So the alternative was to turn me into a dispatcher. Um, I had some mental health struggles throughout my career. A lot of those came, and it wasn't. I always say that it wasn't one thing. It wasn't like I saw a particular motor vehicle wreck one night, and then all of a sudden, like life changed for me. It was progressive. It was over time. A lot of it had to do with the amount of hours I was working, just not having good coping mechanisms. I had a bad boss at the time. The job I was doing at the time was doing polygraphs, and listening to that stuff over and over and over again became very challenging. And then I actually dealt with an on-duty injury. So, between all of those things, it really kind of led me down a spiral. And what I'll share with everybody is the thing that I would do about it is I would drink. And it's not like I developed a drinking problem. It's not like I was in these tough times and all of a sudden I cracked a Miller Lite for the first time. It was I have not had a good, healthy relationship with alcohol since I was in college. And it didn't change when I got into law enforcement. It was really kind of the same. And, you know, and anybody that's listening that's any of the public safety professions, we drink when it's good, we drink when it's bad, we drink because it's Tuesday. So, um, anyway, I get to this point where uh, I was suicidal for a while. My wife actually confronts me about the booze, and that actually gets me to a place where I start to become sober. And last Wednesday was my 6-year anniversary of being sober. And then the thing that really helps me as far as like not just getting sober but staying there is the practice of yoga. I started getting into it. I actually then, if you fast forward, I became a yoga teacher. And most recently, not only have I done some advanced yoga teacher training classes, but I've also become a peer recovery specialist in the state of Maryland. So that is me in a nutshell. as far as my story, and we can certainly go into depth about different pieces and parts, but that'll give you a good taste.
Awesome. Perfect. And congratulations on
Oh,
60.
thanks.
That's
Thank you.
great because you hit a key part is there's one thing about getting sober, staying sober. And so
Yeah.
we'll come back and unpack that a little bit more as well. Mike, welcome. What about you? Tell us your story and who you are.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for having me on. I really appreciate it. My name is Mike Martinez. I have been with the San Diego Police Department now for 9 years. So I'm still a baby cop. I have some experience working state corrections in Hawaii, working animal control in San Diego County, and it's kind of a little bit about my job background. But for me, my first uh, 8 months out in the field right after phase training, I was involved in my first officer involved shooting. 11 months later, the first shooting was involved a suspect that was armed with a knife, ran towards me. We shot him, killed him. 11 months later, I was involved in my second officer involved shooting, which came out as an active shooter. Suspect was armed with an AK-47. I was the only shooter on that incident, shot and killed him. And then 7 months later, I was involved in my third officer involved shooting. So, within 18 months, right out of the field or right out of phase training, I was involved in three officer involved shootings and two off duty incidents, which all in all, it was a trickle effect for me. It was that snowball effect where I learned that the alcohol worked for the symptoms that I was having. For the first shooting, I had a couple of different symptoms. My chief complaint was the headaches. It was waking up with headaches, falling asleep with them every single day. Once I uh, Once I learned that the alcohol worked and it got rid of the headaches, it was an everyday thing and it worked. The alcohol, it worked for me every single time. It has never failed me in my entire career. It's always worked. And the second officer involved shooting is when the inability to sleep, the nightmares, the paranoia, the headaches were still there, the nauseousness, the kind of staying away from my family, the life at home was falling apart. So I resorted back to the alcohol. The Started drinking a lot more alcohol then, and again it worked. It took away the headaches. It took away. It was able to. I was able to. It was able to put me to sleep, and I learned quickly that it took away the nightmares. Now today, now that I'm healthier and I ended up going into treatment, I understand today that with so much alcohol in your system or in our system, your brain does not go into REM sleep. And what I was doing, which I didn't know, was I was basically starving my brain of ever going into REM sleep, which kicked up the paranoia, which kicked up the just that paranoia was pretty crazy. Um, and in 2019, after my November of 2019, after my third officer involved shooting, the San Diego Police Department's wellness unit came to me. They offered me an opportunity of a lifetime to go get some help. I entered treatment for 26 days. Was diagnosed with PTSD. I was at a first responder only treatment facility. Got sober, found my faith again in God. Um, my wife and I had decided to divorce, but once I got out, we decided to stay married. Started doing counseling. Life started to become better and better in different aspects, just with my kids, with myself, with my marriage, at work. I became a field training officer, a peer support officer for our OIS peer support team. And in 2021, I was approached by Deanna, which is the lady that I credit for saving me.
She's awesome.
She was on our wellness unit, and she asked me if I wanted to be part of the wellness unit. And at the time, I mean, I was still a young cop. I was a lot younger then, and I was like, man, I'm not doing any of that, not anytime soon. I'll do that when I'm all old and beat up, and I can't get in and out of my vehicle anymore. And she told me that the chief of police had already already assigned me to the unit. So I was voluntold to go, and about uh, about 6 months later, I was involved in my fourth officer involved shooting, which was fatal. And as bad as that last incident was, I realized that I was because I had the tools. I utilized all the tools from inpatient treatment, everything that I had learned there. Some of the huge takeaways from coming out of that facility, life lessons, I would say. I bounced back from that fourth OIS so much easier than I did all the other three combined. And if it wasn't for certain people, my wife, my sergeant, Deanna, the wellness unit, if it wasn't for the San Diego Police Department's resources, um, I'm 1,000,000% sure that I would have never made it to that fourth OIS. I wouldn't be around anymore. So um, I I credit it was a team effort, but at the end of the day, we gotta give ourselves credit for putting in that work. And today I do drink alcohol. That was we could get into that. It was a decision that I ended up making a couple years later, not knowing whether or not I was an alcoholic. Learned that I was self-medicating at the time, and I think it's important for people to realize that there's people that I work with now at the wellness unit that can't be around alcohol. They can't be around it. They can't smell it. They can't think about it. They have to go to classes every single day, and if that's what keeps them on track, then good for them. Keep doing what you're doing. Whatever works for you works for you. And then there's other people who use it to self-medicate. And I always tell people, if you're drinking alcohol, whenever you're drinking alcohol, you got to really ask yourself, why is it that I'm drinking alcohol? Are you drinking alcohol because you had a rough day? That's probably not the best thing to utilize to is to drink alcohol after a rough day, after an argument with your significant other. Um, if you're using it to cope, if it becomes a coping mechanism, it's probably not a good idea to use alcohol. But that's my story in a very small nutshell.
Okay. So much. This is going to be a great episode. First, thank you guys both for being here and for being willing and vulnerable to share your stories so that other people can maybe learn from you and get themselves some help and resources. Um, there's so many different facets and layers to this. Before I get into all of that, well, okay, so much. So you said you have 9 years in, and you were like, I'm a baby cop, and yet 4 OISs in 9 years, um, where you have taken life. And so even though time is relative, right? You have more experience than some people that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. So we can't compare. I know cops usually typically introduce themselves with, I'm so and so, I'm from this PD, and I have this many years on. And then you start putting in the blanks of, okay, I understand where you're at with your mindset, your career, but that's not necessarily always the case. And that's why we really need to, as a collective, take a step back and actually get to know the person on an individual level, because everybody's dealing with something. We all have our battles, and you don't necessarily know just from those surface level conversations. Um, as we get into this conversation, I just want to talk a little bit about my experience. I never personally have been an alcoholic or an addict. However, I was married to an addict. This picture that's right behind me, you can't see too well, but that is the bar that I used to own on Maui. So I served alcohol to alcoholics on a daily basis, and had to make moral and ethical decisions of I would literally have people coming in from AA to come get a drink. And I know this, and I know that they're trying to be sober, but I also had to decide, okay, am I going to be the one that serves them, or am I going to cut them off knowing full well they're going to go drink? And at least if I'm taking care of them, they're not going to be overserved, they're going to make it home, they're not going to drive, all of these different factors. So I have different crash courses. And then I also, as a coach and a holistic wellness practitioner, have worked with many, many addicts and helped get people through into recovery. So as we unpack these conversations, um, I always try to start at kind of the beginning of the career. When you guys got started, well, actually with this, I'm going to walk it back even more, because with addiction, childhood and early developmental years plays a huge role with how we have a relationship with alcohol and all of these other things. So are you guys, and you guys, I know you guys are open to sharing, but you are share as much or as little as you're comfortable. The more you share, the more we're going to help, but I don't want to force you guys. So with that, whichever one wants to go first, what was your youth like and relationship with alcohol?
So I would say that I had a good childhood. I was raised by a single mom. I went to a private school for 12 years. Financially, like anything that I ever wanted, I had. Now, the one thing that I will share with you is that like when you're raising kids and things like that, the one thing we didn't talk about was feelings or emotions. Like anytime that there was anything bad, it was constantly like covered up or hidden so that we didn't, because none of those things needed to be talked about ever. Um, and still to this day, it's kind of like brushed under the rug. So, interestingly enough, when we talk about like ACEs scores, and when we talk about like where we're forming these things, um, so what I don't learn until I was probably in my mid 40s was my dad's history. What's what actually that's what got passed down to me without me ever knowing him. And so the very very short version of that is that my dad had spent like 8 years in an orphanage after being taken out of the home because it was a substance abuse and a domestic violence situation. He went into the military. He had a nervous breakdown. He gets diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar. Um, just there are like two more things, and they're just slipping my mind right now. Um, and this is in the 70s, and this is stuff that's not talked about. Um, and unfortunately, he at that point he gets into heroin, and at that point, my mom and dad divorced, and he ends up taking his own life. Uh, Now it's incredible, like I said, that I never knew this man, but some of these traits were passed down to me. And I think it's important that we go back and we look at these things. Not that we necessarily have to be like, oh, I really like this, but more like, oh, I think I need to understand where I came from because now I need to understand, all right, so this is in me. So am I going to pass this down? And maybe I make the choice that I'm not going to pass this down. So all right, so that was part of the childhood. I played an incredible amount of team sports. Um, Honestly, as far as drinking goes, I went to high school parties, and yeah, I mean, got drunk a handful of times, but it wasn't until I get to college that I'm actually like off on my own. That's when it really probably started, and I never thought I had a problem because I was drinking the same way everybody else was, and that usually looks like they pass out, they throw up, whatever. Um, and it wasn't until uh, I mean, there was maybe a handful of times over the next like 20 years that I thought I had a problem. There were two people that actually told me I had a problem that I blew off. And no, it's not until my wife actually video records me um, 6 years ago. And she's like, this is what you look like. You're a mess. And that was the day that I was like, all right, well, um, I don't want to have this conversation anymore. And the way that I don't have that conversation is not to drink. So I gave you like 48 years, uh, as condensed as I could, starting at my childhood.
Well, and really quick before we get with Mike's part, there's a couple parts to that. When you were drinking and your wife came to you before that, did you get defensive?
Um, yeah, because a lot of times it was. I always say it's the world's worst Christmas present because it's like the next day they're like, "Do you remember saying this?" Or do you remember doing this? And I don't. And I'm like, oh. Um, and she had said things like, I'm worried about your job. I'm worried about like your health. And it wasn't until she takes that step. But yeah, I didn't like being told that I was out of line because I was just, I was just having fun. And then the way I sometimes put it is I had more fun than I could handle. And I would just get out of control.
And see, and that's one of the unfair parts of addiction and alcoholism is that the sober person, you say stuff. You can say the meanest things, you can say the nicest, you could be the most loving, happy person, like we're gonna go on a vacation, like whatever it is. No matter what, you wake up the next day, you have no recollection that it happened. And if you were saying very mean things, your partner is now sitting in that. And the problem is there's no way for them to forget it. So even as you move through years and years, there's so many facets of needing the counseling for the person that's on that receiving side because you can't remember and then they're holding that pain. And is it really your truth? Because we say the truth comes out when you're drunk, or was it just that other outlet within? So there's so many different nuances. And the other thing as well, because you guys were talking about, so Vance, are you able to drink? Do you drink at all? Or are you 100% stone cold sober?
No, stone cold sober.
Okay.
I won't. I can't touch it. I won't touch it. Um, and it's just I recognize that uh I can't have two. Like some people, they can go out and have a drink or they can have two, and I just can't. My switch doesn't work like that. So even if I was in a better headspace now, even before I was in that bad headspace, my drinking was pretty out of control. So I just need to not have any because I don't know how to moderate. And early on in my sobriety, like the first 12, 18 months, I couldn't even be around people drinking because it would upset me so much. Now the only real trigger I have is if I start to see people getting drunk, I usually have to get away from that. But other than that, I can be around them. I can be in bars. My wife can have a glass of wine or a beer with dinner, and that doesn't do anything to me.
So, and then Mike, on the flip side, you are able to have a drink or two. And before we get even deeper in this, for the audience listening, one of the things that I want to lay a ground rule: no judgment. No judgment of our guests, no judgment of yourself, no judgment of others. Because a lot of things that happen when it comes to addiction is we tend to judge the other. Well, I'm just an alcoholic. At least I'm not doing coke. Well, I just do coke, so at least I'm not doing meth. Well, I just do meth, so at least I'm not doing fentanyl and all this stuff. No, 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 no. There is no one better or different. Everybody's dealing with something, and there's no one size fits all. That's why I'm really happy to be having this conversation because, and Mike, you're going to get into this, I think, a little bit, but having the cultural competent, cultural experienced professionals that can help you get through recovery, because especially in law enforcement and first responder fields, it's very, very difficult. Depending on where you are in the country, Mike is very lucky because San Diego is ahead of the game. San Diego PD is one of the leading departments in the country for putting wellness first. So you have those. There are some departments, they're decades behind. They have nothing. Nothing at all, and there's nothing in their general area. So they might just be sitting there. And then the culture, our entire nationwide culture is based on alcohol. You go to a restaurant, the first thing they do is tell you the drink specials. You get onto an airplane, they tell you the drink specials. Everything is in your face with alcohol. So Mike, I'm going to let you talk. I won't talk over you. What about you with your experience? So you are able to have a few drinks, but what was your relationship like growing up with alcohol first?
Yeah, so the alcohol was always around. Um I grew up good. I grew up with both my parents. They were both hardworking. Dad was hardly ever home. Worked like two full-time jobs and two part-time jobs. I mean he was just a hard worker. But I would remember that he would come home late at night before I would go to sleep on a Monday night, sit down, have a six pack or a 12 pack with him, and watch the football game, watch Monday Night Football or whatever it may be, watch the basketball game and have a couple of beers. But alcohol was always around when I was growing up. Um, I I have family members on both sides of my family, mom and dad, who are um, involved with or were involved with narcotics, gangs, and that was the environment that I grew up in. So as a young kid, seeing that all the time, seeing the cousins and the uncles who were cool, who had the nice clothes, who had the pretty girlfriends. It was just an easy go to, like, hey, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be one of them, right? I'm gonna be one of them. I think I had my first drink at 8 or 9 years old, on the roof of my grandma's house with my cousin and my brother, and it was like it was a Miller, it was a Miller beer, and that's just the way it was. But you know, there was times growing up, going into, getting older, teenager, college, where we just party, and there was times where I could have no beer, no alcohol. There was times where I'd be throwing up before the party was even over. So I think it was just a part of, for me, it was a part of kind of growing up. There was some good experiences with it, growing up, and there was some bad experiences with alcohol. But for me, alcohol was it's always been around.
So thank you guys for sharing that. And one of the things, I do, in addition to coaching and everything else, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. And so I work a lot with the subconscious. And one of the things that I help clients with is quitting smoking or quitting whatever the addiction is. And what we don't understand a lot of the times, like, yes, there's a benefit. There's always a benefit. No matter how toxic the behavior is, if you're doing it repetitively, repetitively, there's a benefit to it. And you're getting something from that. So a lot of times if you're drinking, you're smoking, you're doing these things, yes, maybe it's helping you sleep better, it's stress reducing, it's helping you with whatever, but there's also a string that goes all the way back to those first experiences, that whatever the emotion was around that, which is usually a kind of a mixed bag of, it's fun, it's dangerous, you're being, maybe sneaky, or you're connecting, like you said, you did with your brother and your cousin, so there was like this whole like camaraderie part of it. Um, there are emotions that tie all the way back into the youth that also set you up to your relationship with whatever vice you're doing, including, we're going to primarily talk about alcohol in this episode because we're going from experience. But for those that are listening, when we say addiction, we typically go to the hards. We go to alcohol, drugs, but there's also porn, gambling, all sorts of different types of addiction that fall into this. And I'm hoping that for the audience, there's something that you can take away. The one thing that I do want to say to the audience as well is, if you are sitting there like, well, I can do it myself, I've got this. If you're dealing with addiction, no, you don't. You don't have it on your own. It's too easy for your mind to convince you and justify, oh, it's about, whatever it is. So unless you're really healing some of these inner dialogues and inner conflicts with a professional, somebody else that can help you move through it. Because like we already said, there's a difference between getting clean and sober and staying clean and sober. So as you guys moved into some of this, you guys already kind of just had a relationship with alcohol. Um, with Mike, with you just got, you got handed some rough stuff. So
To
with,
say the least.
to say the least, I mean, my God. Um, I don't know even where, I don't even know where to begin with you, because that's a lot. So I'll let you kind of take it. And from the first one all the way through, just kind of walk us through your experience.
Yeah, well, we could be here for 4 hours, and I don't think we have enough time for that. But I'll just, so, when I was right out of phase training, for me, I quickly got involved in a whole bunch of stuff at work. I got the nickname Shit Magnet within a few months. I mean, I was in foot pursuits, vehicle pursuits, the gangsters, the dope, the guns. I mean, it wasn't just me. It was my whole squad. We were a young squad. There was two very senior guys on there that kind of took us under their wing, and taught us the ropes and explained what this world was like. They set those boundaries, or taught us the boundaries. And but other than that, man, we were just out there getting it. We're getting it every single day. It was like a show on Cops. And you once you start getting invited to have lunch with the guys at work, during work, you're in. But you're really in when you start getting invited to go have some beers. It's like now we trust you. Like now we trust you enough that if we invite you to go have beers afterwards and all the shit that we're talking, we know that we could trust you that it's not going to leak out. And in this culture, in the law enforcement culture, it was almost like it was almost it was like a point that you need to get to. It was a point that you need to get to in order to fit in. At least that's the way I felt. And so early on in my career, the alcohol was there. It never got out of hand. It was never nothing crazy. It was after the first officer involved shooting, which that that the first officer involved shooting, it kicked up a little bit of dust. It caused some protests and marches. Somebody had recorded the shooting from their backyard from a distance, and that the shooting looked like we had shot the suspect in his back as he ran from us. That clearly was not the case. Our body worn camera, our air support unit was overhead. They recorded the incident. Um, the video shows the suspect charging towards me when we began to shoot. But that video that the citizen released on YouTube, that kicked up a lot of dust. And so during this time, I'm having headaches, I'm nauseous, I'm numb. You know, people are asking me, "How are you doing? How are you feeling?" And I'm like, I'm good. I don't feel shit. I literally don't feel anything. I didn't realize that it was numb. It was like my brain was in shock. My body was in shock as to what I just saw, what had just happened. But I didn't realize that. And when the headaches didn't go away, about 2 weeks after the OIS, I get invited to the bar. And even though I felt like shit, I still went. And I remember like, and I talk about it a lot at the different conferences and training events. But I still remember to this day being at the bar, drinking my first 2 or 3 sips of that beer, and the headache, it just disappeared. I mean, in an instant, it was gone. And I was like, holy crap, there was nothing else that was taking it away. I was trying to drink caffeine. I was trying to take naps. I was trying to hydrate. I was taking aspirin, Tylenol, Advil. There was nothing during the day that would take the headaches away. And how quick the alcohol worked that night, even when I was having a blazing headache, it worked. And from that day forward, it was 1, 2, 3, 4 beers. You know, nothing. It was never anything crazy, but it worked. It worked every single time, and that didn't help my marriage at all at home. And a lot of the conversations and just things that we talk about at the wellness unit now, which I'm on, is well, we're talking to people that are having issues at home, that they may be drinking a little bit more. I always ask them, hey, those arguments that you have with your wife or with your husband, are they usually around alcohol? Are you usually under the influence when you're having these arguments? You feel like every argument or every conversation is turning into an argument. And when they do, are you under the influence? And the majority of the time it's yes. The answer is yes. But when we're drinking, or when I was drinking, I felt like I had energy. I felt like I could have a beer and I could have a conversation with my wife. I felt like I had energy to play with my kids. I wasn't grumpy. I wasn't feeling like shit. Yeah, and it was just it was, again, it was a miracle drug, and it worked. It worked every single time for me.
So let me ask you that. So if there's somebody listening that's in that space right now where they have not figured out how to get resources and get sober, and they're like, yeah, everything you just said, why would I do anything different? Because what I'm doing is working. So what would you say to that kind of a mindset? Either one of you, but Mike too.
Yeah, no, I'll just say that it absolutely does work. There's something about alcohol that does work. It definitely will take the edge off. It's not the healthiest. It's not the healthiest thing to do, and it will continue to work until it doesn't work. And when it no longer works for you, you're gonna be way beyond help. I mean, you're gonna be way beyond help. You'll notice that the basement has a basement, and and that's where you'll be. It's better to address the issue now, figure out why you're drinking now, why you have to drink every single night when you come home now. Address the issue now, before it gets worse. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't ever have alcohol. You may not be able to ever have alcohol. You may be able to drink responsibly, or you may not. It just depends. But I think it's important that you learn the reason why you're drinking. And I think that's probably the most important. Knowing, why am I drinking today? Why do I come home from work? Why do I wake up in the morning and I have to have a beer at 10 o'clock? Why do I have to come home and take the edge off? Do I got to do it to go to sleep, to do something normal, like normal humans just take a shower at night, they lay down in bed and go to sleep? If you're having issues doing just simple things like that, then it's something that you might have to address with the professional, or address with somebody so you could get the help.
Well, I think you hit a really big part too, is it works until it doesn't. And I mean, we all know officers that have lost their job, thrown their career away, um, because they either came to work drunk or they made a stupid decision, something's going on, or what gets a lot of good cops in trouble too is they drank the night before, they show up the next day and you're still not going to pass a breathalyzer, and now you're done. You're done. And it's that quick that you can lose your career and everything you work for. Not to mention adding in when you drink, and if you got anger, I don't think it's talked about enough. It gets talked around a lot, but the domestic violence within the first responders space is a problem. It's a problem, and drinking is absolutely a contributing factor to that. Vance, want to chime in?
I do, and it's funny that you said about the anger part because that was I had this like seething rage constantly, and what I later determined, or not me, but like a doctor, was that that's how my depression came out, was that it would come out as just this burning hot rage, and it wasn't, again, there's a lot of therapy work that happens after the whole like stopping drinking part, but there was a lot of like rejection and loneliness and sadness that were like literally sitting under that emotion. And it wasn't until we get to those things, um, again, look, all those emotions that I just told you, anger is okay for a cop, seriously, because people look at it as like aggressive and like you can do something with it. No cop is going to be like, I'm sad, I'm lonely, or I feel like rejected, because people are literally going to be like, what's wrong with you? Um, so when you start taking that, when you start internalizing that, and I didn't feel like there was anywhere that I could really go and talk about this. When I was going to therapy, when I started taking medication, like I think three people knew, and one's my wife, one's my family care doctor, and one's my therapist. Like we didn't tell anybody this stuff. Um, but I'm going to tell you that very early on, when I stopped drinking, that's all it was. It was literally, I'm just not drinking. But it wasn't until that I really start to go back to an intensive, like every week therapy program, that we start like really uncovering it and digging down. That's when healing started. Um, so yeah, that now, once you actually get to that point, I think there's some things that I'm sure we'll talk about this, but like what we have to do on a daily basis, what we have to do on a weekly basis, what we do on a monthly basis. That's for me anyway. There's certain things that I have to do in order to stay that way, and I can tell when I haven't done those things because I start to feel off, and I don't necessarily crave alcohol at this point. There was a point that I very much did, and it was literally white knuckling it to not drink. But certainly, I feel a lot stronger about it now, especially when I started talking about it. It actually made me a little stronger. And what I publicly say every single time is, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to tell anybody else that they shouldn't drink. What I'm going to tell you is, I can't drink. And if you can answer the question of, you know, in look, if every time you have alcohol, every time you introduce it into your life, a negative consequence happens, maybe it's time for a little self-reflection. Maybe it's time that we say, all right, well, maybe we take a night off, something like that. Because um, I feel like if somebody would have had that conversation with me, uh, I don't know, maybe I would have slowed down or stopped earlier on. I'm not sure. I just feel like I needed to go through what I went through in order to get to where I am now. Um, I really had felt like I had lost everything because at that point of getting hurt, like I wasn't going to be a cop anymore, but my agency wasn't doing anything about it. So I was kind of sitting in this limbo stage, and it made my mental health just spiral out of control. And I would just be mad, and I would come home and I would drink, and when I would drink, I would feel better. Just like Mike said, um, it does make you feel better, but then uh, there's never enough. And the only way that I would stop is I would pass out, and then wake up like the next morning and not know how I got on the couch, but my alarm would go off, and I'd still be able to take a shower, put my clothes on, be at work on time, never miss appointments. Like people didn't know I had a problem. Um, I did. I knew I had a problem, and my wife certainly knew I had a problem. It just
Oh,
it just took a little while.
you guys are just like like you're building a house. You're nailing everything on the head right now. Um, so many different areas. I want to start with the department really quick and walk a few things back with you guys because it is so easy to point the finger and blame, and so many people across the country are pissed off at their departments, their command staff, their chief. You don't understand me. You didn't support me. You didn't have my back. You left me to hang out and dry. There is a lot of anger and a lot of pain towards their departments for all sorts of reasons. I want to make a quick mention. Anger stems from pain. So the angrier you are, when I look at you as a wellness practitioner, I see somebody that's very much hurting. Um, I personally, we just got into the space where it's okay to talk about this stuff in law enforcement. We still have a long way to go to get everybody on board. There are some leaders that need to pull the, wax out of their ears and really get it. Um, there are a lot that are getting it though, but I just kind of yell at some of them to maybe someday they'll hear it. Um, I personally, we're starting to see wellness rooms come into departments, or at least a quiet space, something that you can do, that it's okay to go get some resources. Have you guys ever heard of rage rooms? You ever heard of a rage room? I think
I
that
have. I
it
have.
needs to be a thing. I think it's more of a West Coast and Arizona thing, and it needs to go. So, what a rage room is, you go to a place, you sign the liability waiver, they suit you up with the protective goggles and the whatever suit and whatever protective gear you need. You go into a room with a baseball bat or whatever, and you break shit. You break plates and stuff on the wall, and you can beat up a table, and you go and you just get all your anger out in a safe space where you can scream, you can cuss, you can cry, you literally are throwing shit, you just get it out. So now you can get past the anger, start getting to the pain of it, and start sitting with moving some of these emotions out. I mean, the fact that you guys have one of the hardest jobs, you're seeing all this shit, you're going to dead baby calls and domestic violence and all of this stuff. You have every right to be freaking angry. Come on. So, if you're in an area where you are holding a lot of rage and you don't know what to do with it, look into your local area, see, or maybe take a vacation, go visit a rage room. I'm going to start promoting them a little bit more because I think they're fantastic.
If I can just add on to something, I told you how angry I was, especially when I was in the process of leaving my police department. I had a lot of anger and I had a lot of bitterness, and I felt like I had been mistreated by my agency. And I'm going to tell you where that comes from, and it comes from that I had this expectation that they were going to love me the way I loved them. And to be fair, an agency can't love me. Uh, and this is, I mean, listen, this is going through an awful lot of therapy. This is doing a lot of like work within the yoga world, and like reading about stoicism and Buddhism and things like that. The reason I was so angry was because I expected this result that I had no control over. And it wasn't until I become my own advocate and I start to pull myself out of the hole, you essentially become like the own hero in your story. And that's, you kind of got to be that for yourself because nobody's going to do it for you.
So here's my question for you. Because we have, especially in the first responders space, functional addicts, functional alcoholics, where nobody knows that you're going through all of this stuff. You even said nobody knew that you were going through all this stuff. And yet you had an expectation that your department was going to swing in and play hero and kind of rescue you. But did they even have a clue that you were hurting?
No,
See,
no.
that is, I hope the
They had
audience
well,
listens to that.
they had no idea about the alcohol part. They knew that I was injured and I had been separated from the pack at this point. Like I had had surgery and I was on light duty and I hadn't gone back or anything like that yet. And they, they didn't. I'm not. Again, I had a lot of bitterness that would grow for things that I felt like should have been done or I would have done if I was in a commander position. But again, that's a me problem because I expected me out of somebody else, and that's not fair. So me putting that on them. And again, this is me working through some things to not be. I didn't want to carry that anger around like that anymore. Uh, but I'll tell you that that's where the alcohol really came in because it settled the anger down, and that's what allowed me to sleep. Just like Mike had said.
Well, and then just to plant a seed, because every month we do a dedicated topic. So June, I believe, we are doing injury recovery and mindset. So we'll have you come back and talk about because the anger and when you do get put on light duty, there's so many other facets to that that go into the whole healing process. Um, One of the other things I want to unpack with you guys, because especially for the male audience, women are a little bit, for the most part, a little bit more in tune with our emotions, and some are very shut down, but for the most part, we kind of can talk about stuff a little bit easier than men. With men specifically, you guys over decades and decades, there's been the don't talk about it, suck it up, buttercup. There's the stigma of things. And then back in the day, there really was career suicide. Had you guys gone to your departments 10 years ago and say, hey, I'm having these problems, you would not be where you are today, period. You'd be done. And we need to grow and evolve. And so, Mike, with you, you have a supportive, progressive department. And now you're in that role. So if someone, oh, there's so many different parts I want to talk about, but one, I want to make it okay. I want you guys to tell people it's okay to talk about it. It's uncomfortable at first. It's scary to talk about your feelings. You don't know necessarily what's going to come up. But Mike, for you, what was your process of getting to the point where you were opening up and knowing it was okay to open up?
Yeah, so I never really did. So the San Diego Police Department, we've been around. The wellness unit has been around since 2011, and from the way I understand it, we were one of the first agencies in the nation to create a full-time wellness unit, bring all of our resources under one umbrella, which is the wellness unit, and provide resources to all of our employees and their family members. That's been around since 2011. I came on in 2016. So for me, the we had Family Wellness Day, which right after graduating the academy, your first paid day as a real police officer, before phase training, your first day after the academy, you bring your family, you bring all the officers. It's like an 8-hour day, and they provide all the resources that are available to you and your family. From the POA, our POA comes in. They talk about what they have to offer. The chaplains come in, our psychological services, our wellness unit. I mean, it's hosted by our wellness unit, and this is something they've been doing since before I got there. So I knew the resources. I knew that there was focused psychological services. I knew that it was free for me and my wife. I knew that those services were there. I knew that we had chaplains. I knew we had peer supporters. I knew it all, but I didn't utilize it. I didn't utilize it because one of the big things was, we'll go back to my first shooting. I never heard of anybody bitching and complaining about a headache. Never. Never heard anybody complaining about that, especially after a shoot. After you get into a shooting and now you're complaining about a headache. As a baby cop, only 8 months on the job, I felt like I'm going to stay quiet. I'm definitely not going to say anything because I don't hear anybody complaining about a headache. This is a good shoot. It's justified. It's righteous. Eventually, we got cleared. Why am I going to turn something positive now into something negative? Like I can't handle it. And so I was my own worst enemy. But the resources were there. The second shooting is when I really started to spiral out of control. The third shooting, my and the reason I'm fast forwarding it because it's going to come back to the very early on in my career. My wife and I, we were already going through a divorce. I get into my shooting at around 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday. I text my wife. We were already divorcing, so I text her and I said, "Hey, I got into another shooting. I'm going to be late." And although we were already going through a divorce, that particular night we were on talking terms. We were still living together, and she never responded to me. And go through the entire homicide process, go home, walk into an empty house, start drinking. Well, the following day, she reached out to my sergeant, and the conversation was something like, "Hey, I know he's never going to forgive me. We're already going through a divorce, but he is not okay, and you guys need to fix him. Like you guys need to address it." And my sergeant, up until that point, he couldn't put his finger on what was wrong with me, but he knew that there was something over the past couple of months that just wasn't right. But I was out there getting it. I was real proactive. I was my investigations, my reports were on point. I was never late to work. I never called out sick. I volunteered for every single overtime. Like I I I I was riding under the radar and nobody knew, but he could tell that there was just something wrong with me. He couldn't put his finger on it. Well, when he got that phone call from my wife, he was like, "Damn, I knew something was going on." He reached out to the wellness unit, who then the following day, they contacted me in person, and then they offered me that opportunity to go get treatment. So it wasn't until I was kind of backed into a corner, and even when I was backed into the corner, when they told me, "Hey, there's this treatment center we would like you to go to. We think you would benefit. It's a first responder only treatment facility." Even then, I was like, "I'm not going to that. Like, I'm good. If if I wanted to quit alcohol, I could stop anytime I want. It's not a big deal. I could quit anytime. Uh, I'm not 5150. I'm not crazy." Well, Deanna, um, who was on the wellness unit, she followed up with me multiple times next couple of 3 days, and I finally decided to go because I knew that I wasn't normal. I knew that I wasn't okay, and this is what I typically say. Um, I knew that I was fucked up, and I knew that I was broken, and I was damaged, and I was ruined. And I know that clinicians all over the place, when I say those words, they cringe because they're like, "Oh my God, you can't, don't say that to people who have PTSD because it's an injury and you're hurt." And I truly believe, I'll argue with any doctor around the world, that we're beyond hurt. Like we're hurt on paper, we're injured on paper. PTSD is an injury, but our families are destroyed. Like we are a fucking mess. We're afraid of the dark. We're looking out at shadows through our windows. Our kids don't talk to us. We hate our own children. We hate our family members. We're completely damaged. But it doesn't mean that we can't go get the proper help and be restored. Be built back up from the ground on up. Start over again and start over fresh and start over and become stronger. It doesn't mean that we can't do any of that. So so it wasn't until Deanna reached out to me in person and she kept following up with me when I was finally like, you know what? I'm broken. And before the department fires me, I've already been in 3 shootings and 2 off-duty incidents, all within 18 months. I'm still a baby cop. They're going to fire me. I'm a liability. They're going to terminate me. I already knew what was going to happen with me. Um, I was like, I better go get the help that I need because I want the department to pay for it. I want the department to pay for it because they're going to terminate me and I'm going to lose my wife and kids. I need some help. And that was the only thing that got me to go. And it was an absolute life life changing experience and eye opening experience to what I saw in there, what I learned from that, what I got out of it, and all of that.
I want to unpack some of that because from the spouse component and somebody that's been married to an addict, um, ideally, if we could just wave a magic wand, you guys are sharing your story. Hopefully, there's a first responder, cop, somebody sitting out there that's like, oh, this sounds like me. You know what? They're right. I'm going to go get help. But the reality is, they're going to be like, yep, that sounds like me. Crack open another beer and not do shit because addiction is hard. Um, for the spouses and family members, I want to do a little PSA for you. There's a few things here. I don't even know where to begin with this. One, the biggest lesson that I learned is you cannot help somebody that does not want to help themselves. Now, if somebody's dealing with addiction, um, you're going to try. Usually you're going to try. You're going to stick it out. You're going to try to get them help. But you got to get to a point where you're having those boundaries of sometimes you do have to let go. Sometimes you do need to get a divorce and walk away from it because if you now are martyring yourself and you're losing your own life and they're not going to get any better, you're not going to be the magic fix it. Okay. Now, sometimes you can love somebody from afar. I will say if they are violent, get out, get your resources, and then hopefully they can get some. You can still help provide resources from afar if it's safe enough. If they're not violent, but they're struggling, um, you're not going to do it alone. And sometimes you do need to drag them kicking and screaming and kick their ass. Sometimes like what your wife did is reach out. It's beyond the spouse. It's so hard because they see it, but they can also be because they're the closest, they can become the punching bag. And now you're the problem. And again, just like the department can be the problem, the spouse is the problem, everybody else is the problem. And as they say in recovery, the first step is admitting you have a problem. Like Mike, you had said you were fine. You were fine. You were gonna, but you weren't. So spouses and departments. I'm just trying to cover all the bases. I mean, we could literally be talking about this for so long because it's so important and there's so many nuances of it. But I think the departments needing to help step up and understand that it's not just about firing somebody and sending them off being like, we broke them, they're broken, and fuck off. That's not helping anybody. That's also contributing to the suicide rate. And that's also not going to help your department because now somebody that you had on your team is now going to have your team going to respond to their calls. So it's not helping you. You're not fighting crime, you're creating more. So doing more, stepping in, leaning in. If you see something off with somebody in your department, don't write them off. Lean in and get them help. Is that
Yeah,
all?
just 2 things on kind of what you said on the wife aspect and the department, getting rid of folks. So, when I went into treatment, I knew that I was going to get terminated. In my mind, I knew I was going to get terminated. I knew I was going to go through the divorce. Um, and once I got healthier and better, I realized that if my wife, I was okay if my wife was going to leave. I didn't want her to leave. I didn't want her to take the kids, but I also understood. I understood that she didn't sign up for this shit like I did. She definitely didn't sign up for a so much going on so early on in my career and in our life. She didn't sign up for that. And if she would have left, I would have understood and I would have been okay with it. And I've talked to officers around the country who have been in similar situations or their wife did leave them. And we know we know that we understand why. It's not like, oh my gosh, she left me. I have no idea why she left. We have a very clear understanding why, especially once we get healthier. It's it's not something that we may have wanted, but we understand why. Like if my wife would have left me, I would have understood, and I wouldn't have held it against her. And I think for significant others, wives or husbands who are on the opposite side, we may not as officers, we may not understand why you're leaving now, but we we will later. And sometimes in the moment we kind of get it. We have a pretty good understanding that we're not okay, which makes you not okay, which makes the family not okay, which is everybody's constantly walking on eggshells. Everybody is afraid when I come home, when I get home, they don't know what type of mood I'm going to be in, or how many drinks I had when I came home. So that's one part. And then the second part is San Diego Police Department. We've sent I think as of the end of 2024, we have sent 73 officers, sworn employees into inpatient treatment for PTSD and or substance abuse combo of both. We have a 94% return to duty rate. So that means 94% of every single one of those people who have gone to get help are back out in the field. They've promoted. They're not calling out sick. They're not filling out more and more and more work comp claims. They're being productive, and these are men and women who have 2 years on, like I have 2 or 3 years on max, like I did, or you have somebody who's been on for 25, 28 years. You're not getting rid of these people. You're not getting rid of all that knowledge and training and experience. And what I mean, that's a recruitment tool. Not to say like, hey, everybody come on our department so that you could go get help. But I think it's a testament to the departments who are not getting rid of their people to say, hey, we're going to get you the help that you need so that you come back 100%, that you're more productive out in the field, that you don't go home with your duty gun and blow the back of your head off. You don't beat the shit out of your wife. You don't get involved in a DUI accident that accidentally hurts or kills somebody. And now that's a black eye on the department. That's an embarrassment for the department once that gets released. But you're coming back to work. You're going back out there. You're being more productive. You're able to save your marriage. Maybe you're able to save relationship with your kids. You're able to save your faith. You're able to save your own life. Like that's huge for departments. And it's not just San Diego PD that's doing it, but there's other departments around the nation. Not a lot, but there's a few of them who are supporting their employees. And it's not just sworn, but it's your dispatchers, right? I mean, your dispatchers, your crime scene techs. Um, if there's agencies out there, you're going to have people who are like, hey, retire at 55. Like, why am I going to retire? I love this place. You know what I mean? I truly love this place. I, 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 they support me. They've supported me all my career. They've helped me when I was in a dark place. And you're going to have people staying longer, not wanting to lateral and transfer to other agencies. You're going to have people wanting to come onto your department. I think in my personal opinion, I think it's a win-win all the way around for everybody. If you could do it right, if you
Yeah.
could learn how to do it right.
You take care of your people will take care of you and they will stay. And going through some of these dark night of the soul journeys, I always teach that your pain is part of your purpose. We go through these struggles, and if you get the healing and the resources and you get on that right track and you don't play victim, you don't stay stuck in the dark of it, you come through, it makes you a better person, a better spouse, a better officer, a better whatever it is, a better leader, because now you have compassion, you have understanding. For law enforcement, for those, you guys have a 94% return to work rate in your department. I know in your area, you guys have several of these facilities, First Responder Wellness being one of the top in the nation. I've had the privilege of touring their facility and talking to them. They are nailing it. And they have a high return to work rate. So it's not giving up, it's teaching you the tools, because now as officers, when you go to these calls where you're dealing with an alcoholic or addiction or whatever the situation is, you're going to see it through different eyes. And you're going to maybe be able to get them resources that they didn't know exist because you have that understanding and you can talk on that same level. So honestly, it's making your department better by taking care of those that are getting screwed up. And Vance, I want to get you to chime in on this too in a second, but one more thing I want to say is I don't think some people realize how quickly addiction can happen. I had a client who was a firefighter. He was married, had kids, great husband, great family man, great in the community, great at the department, all star, all the way around. And he fell off of a roof and broke his back. And he got on prescription painkillers from the doctor, legal, needed for healing. The problem is with Oxy and those higher addictive pills, we're not even talking about pills, but there are some people out there, they trick your brain into thinking you're in pain when you are no longer in pain. So you think that you need it. And the doctors are not helping. I'm going to kind of call them out because I mean my own personal experience with my ex-husband. He had broken his collarbone, broke his shoulder, his elbow, had a cyst on his spine. So it went from Vicodin to Percocet to muscle relaxers. It's not working. Let's up the dose. Let's up the dose. Okay, that's not working. Now you have anxiety. Here's some pills for that. Now you're depressed. Here's some pills for that. And here's a whole friggin' legal menu of pills. And now he's a hot mess. And then that spiraled into going and getting it from wherever he could. And it was a whole thing. So it can be very quick. Oh, the firefighter, he got addicted to, it went from the oxys into the worst of the worst. Getting it on the streets, shooting up meth, everything that he could find. He lost everything. Lost contact with his kids, got divorced, lost his job, lost family for a while. The last I heard a few years ago, he was completely recovered, gone through it, was forging a relationship. So there is healing. And one more thing too, if you do end up getting divorced, I just want to say, eventually, if you do the work, there is potential to repair and at least have a friendship, especially if you have kids. You don't have to be in a toxic, volatile hate situation. You can come back to a different version of friendship and different version of love, if that makes sense. Vance, how you feeling over there?
I'm good, and there's something that I want to address, and that is like we talked about kind of like where Mike and I were, and um, yeah, I got sober, yeah, I would do yoga and all that business. Mike went to his inpatient stuff. What I want to discuss is like, say my agency doesn't have resources. Say my agency doesn't have like this built out program the way Mike did. Because kudos, I would say a majority of the law enforcement agencies that are listening probably don't have those things.
100%.
So what do you do? All right. So let me give you a couple. All right. The first one that I'm going to suggest to you is if you don't have somebody in your agency that you can go and immediately talk to, I would call Copline. And Copline being a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week operation. And the really unique part about it is that it is answered by retired cops. So getting somebody on the other end of the line that understands exactly what it is that you're going through. And the reason I say that is, look, it is somebody to talk to. And then they also keep a list of resources local to your area. So if you tell them the city, they'll give you like some therapist stuff like that. If you said, "Hey, I'm really bad into the booze, can you tell me something near? Just tell me something on the West Coast." And yeah, I know about first responder wellness. I don't know a ton on the West Coast. I know more stuff here. I am fortunate where I am because there's like 3 facilities within 3 hours drive for me that literally will take you 24 hours a day. Two of those being Recovery Center of America uh, in their rescue program, and then the other one being Harbor of Grace that are first responder and veteran, only. And then the International Association of Firefighters have the Center of Excellence, and that is just on the other side of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. So um, again, I'm fortunate in where I live, but I'm going to tell you right now, when I'm in the worst of it, I didn't know any of that stuff existed. and I would have not had any idea how to do it. So the other thing that I'm going to share is, look, I'm going to have you put my phone number, and I'm going to have you put my email address in the show notes when we're all done. Um, I have compiled a list of resources that I have discovered on my healing journey and going to wellness events and actually interacting with people and stuff that I would use if I was struggling. And the way it's set up literally is, if you send me an email and you say, I just want your resources, I'll just send you the list back. I don't need to know anything else. Uh, you pick and choose whatever you want. So, for that person that's listening that is like, you know, uh, I don't know where to go. There's two options for you: call Cop Line, or you can certainly contact me.
Well, yes, 100% agree. Mike, like I said, he's very fortunate. He is in one of the departments that's leading. Now, they're leading in wellness, but that doesn't mean that they have it all figured out. I still see some stuff go in the headlines of like officer, I think, did you guys have somebody commit suicide in the last year? I think it was you guys or somebody in that area. You did, right? So perfect? No, but better than most. There are, and we sit down and talk to departments all the time. And one of the things when we're trying to talk about coaching, they're like, well, we have EAP. And I'm like, great. What's the number? How do we get, I'm in crisis. What do I do? And they're like, exactly. Okay. You got to know where those resources are. And then the other thing, one of the reasons that I named this podcast the blah, 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 something wellness podcast is because those that are in the wellness space, like us, we get it. We literally could have a 7-hour long podcast on this. And at 7 hours, we'd still be just as amped as we are right now talking about it because we've been through it. We learned some stuff. And those that need it the most, whether it's the department or the individual, if they're not in that space, all they hear is blah, blah, blah. Those guys are talking about something about wellness. I'm going to go have a beer. And that's as far as they're going to get from this episode. And hopefully my goal, like I told you guys before we came on camera, my goal is there's one person that gets it, needs what we have, is going to come out to whether they thank us on here or they reach out to you individually and be like, thank you. And it might not be immediate. It could be 6 months or a year from now where they're like, hey, I saw this episode come up and thank you. So for whoever that person is, thank you in advance for taking the step and reaching out to whoever it is. That's also why I say there's no competition in the wellness space. There is a lot of noise in the wellness space for first responders right now, because it's a new buzzword and the departments are starting to cue in that they might need it, but they have no idea what that looks like. And so some go for the shiny objects that look good, have a bunch of following or whatever, might not be the best resource, but even a bad resource is at least a resource. Okay. Military has VA for their medical. Everybody knows the VA kind of sucks, but at least they have something, right? Something's better than nothing. AA, if you go to AA, their motto for sponsorship is you don't have to have all the answers. You just got to be one step ahead. So reach out, find somebody. The older generation, people like you guys that have gone through this, that have gotten to the other side, share your story. I know, Mike, you're doing some keynote speaking now, aren't you?
Yeah, I've actually been really blessed to be on different podcasts. Just came back from one. I present at different narcotic and gang conferences, gone to individual agencies from North Dakota to Dodge City, Kansas to, I mean, just all up and down California. So it's been an absolute blessing. And I just want to, say that, and I'm right there with Vance also, that I'll leave my information, um, and people can reach out to me. I have also a list of resources, and I think, it doesn't always have to be, you don't always have to go for like an inpatient treatment, like first responder wellness, or we out here in California, or San Diego, we use Institutes of Health, which they have all kinds of different offices. It's an outpatient treatment. It's not an inpatient, but they have a different offices up and down California. But I've also heard of Harbor of Grace out in Maryland, Warriors Heart out in Texas and Virginia. Uh, you don't have to always just use those. Sometimes just talking to somebody, for agencies to create good peer support teams. people on your department who have been through some shit, whether it's at work or in life in general, somebody who has the heart to help other people out. Um, Building a good solid peer support team. You don't have to have the wellness unit like San Diego PD does, or like other agencies like Dallas PD does. You don't have to have a wellness unit. You could have a peer support team. You could have a chaplain. But you could also have retreats. There's retreat centers for first responders all over the place. And some of these are solid retreat centers. Some are 3 days, some are 5 days. Some are Christian faith-based retreat centers. Some are marriage retreat centers. But utilize them. Some of them are free. Some of them you might have to pay out of pocket. Sometimes police officer associations or sheriff associations will pay for their folks to go. Some agencies might pay for you to go, but take advantage of what these places have to offer. It's for us. And again, a lot of times, like Vance, like was saying, when you're going through it, sometimes people don't even realize what's available for them, especially certain areas of the country that may not have, resources like out here in the West Coast have, but there's resources all over the place. Again, from Oklahoma and Florida and Virginia, like Texas, there are places, there's agencies or organizations that have something that's available for people to go to.
And we have the internet. So, like with law enforcement coaching, one of the reasons that we did that, you can come on and work with one of our coaches remote. So you can be wherever. And our thing is, all of our coaches are law enforcement professionals. So they understand the ABCs and the cultural competence. So if you're in, Nebraska, you can talk to one of our coaches. They're not in your professional or social bubble, but they understand what you're going through, and then they can also provide you resources as well. One resource I want to mention here locally, Vance, don't you do something with Struggle Well as well?
I do. So I'm a guide for the Boulder Crest Foundation, teaching the Struggle Well program, and I got into that. I went to my first class about I guess a year and a half ago at this point, and I've been teaching for them for a little over a year, and it's a phenomenal program that talks all about post-traumatic growth. And what I'll share with you is that's kind of a prevention and maybe early intervention thing. But if we get to the point where maybe I was, or maybe where Mike was, when you're talking about, really being in active addiction, there would need to be a step prior to maybe exploring into the Boulder Crest stuff. And what I will share with you is, so Boulder Crest will come to agencies and do like 1 day, 2 day, 5 day struggle well. But then they also have a more intense version, which is called Warrior Path, that is like a 5 to 7 day program. They have them all over the country. Um, but you can't be an active addiction to go to them. So there would have to be a step where you're getting sober prior to going to those programs. But those programs are paid for, including your airfare. You just would have to apply, be accepted, and then you'd get a Zoom meeting to actually talk with somebody about when you go. And I will tell you right now that the waiting list is probably a couple months long, just because there's a lot of people that are trying to get in, which is look, there's demand for it. Um, and there's probably not enough spots right now, but still working on it. But again, if the one thing I would take away from this conversation is that if you're struggling, let's find help like today. Like if there was an issue, let's make a phone call like while we're thinking about it, and say, all right, well, what would this take? And like, do you take my insurance? And these kind of questions that really hang people up. And then like, what do I do with it from here? Is there somebody I can talk to? And I promise there is. It's just you just haven't found the right one yet. Uh, hope that answers it.
Yeah, so there's a couple things I want to address on that too, because you made a very good point. One of the things, so we have a training called duty driven deterioration training, and we take more of a proactive preventative maintenance approach. So it's based on Chris's experience through his career of all of the different things that he's done. but it's really good for those cops that come into the back of the room that are sitting there with their arms crossed, being like, this is bullshit. I'm fine. Beautiful. You're fine. Great. I'm talking to you right now. Whoever you are that's listening to this, being like, this doesn't pertain to me. I'm fine. Great. You should be reaching out and finding your own therapist, counselor, coach, mentor, Reiki practitioner, massage therapist, acupuncture, whatever it is now when you're good. Because the day that you wake up that you're not good, not only are you going to not be able to get out of bed and put one foot in front of the other, if you even have the self-awareness that you have the problem, everybody else is telling you that you have the problem. Now you're not just going to go to Google and say, find me a therapist or a rehab facility or whatever, because they have a wait list. The demand is so high. You have insurance, finance, location, availability. Is it going to work for you? And then do you like that practitioner or not? And one of the things with cops, you guys, no offense, kind of notorious for is you try counseling or therapy or coaching one time and you don't like that practitioner. So then you just poo-poo the whole thing and you don't think anything works. No, that's not how that works. That's one of the reasons we have a team. And I say this all the time. Chris and I, when we go present at conferences or do training, we can say the exact same thing verbatim. Half the room resonates with me. Half the room resonates with him. Some people don't like either of us. Great. We have a whole team of about 20 other professionals you can go talk to. Guarantee you're going to resonate with somebody. If you don't resonate with anybody on our team, that might be a you problem that you might need to check into. So there are a ton of resources. And then also one thing I want to give an honorable mention. Mike Martinez, our mutual connection and friend, and one of our team members is Mike Lawson. Mike Lawson is Chula Vista PD. He's the wellness coordinator. He's also the San Diego, he was sheriff's office, but he has his finger on the pulse too. I mean, he is in all of these wellness conferences. He's traveling, he's checking it out. He is a great wealth of knowledge. And if you're in the California area, get the mics together, both Mike Martinez and Lawson, and they will bring in some just heavy hitting wellness for you. I mean, there's so much there's still, I mean, we've been talking for over an hour and we've barely skimmed the surface of this conversation, and you guys have so much more that you can share. For the departments as well, what I would encourage you to do, especially to the departments that are more remote, that don't have access to those resources so easily, there are so many wellness conferences for first responders and law enforcement right now. The problem that I see is it becomes an echo chamber. It's all the same people. It's the same faces talking about the same thing. It's the peer support and the wellness teams and the people, again, that are in the wellness space going and trying to report back. That's fine. You can send your wellness and peer support people so that they can have those tools and knowledge. But what I would tell you to do, if you have somebody that you know's been going through some stuff, they're exhibiting different signs. You're not, like Mike was saying, your department kind of knew there was something wrong, but they didn't know what it was, but they had a suspicion. Somebody like that, send them with your peer support to those conferences so that they can go get the information. I promise you, these presenters at these conferences, no, for the most part, almost everybody actually knows what they're talking about, because just like you guys been through something and they're trying to help others and share their knowledge. So big old Tami tangent, because that's what I do. I want to honor your guys' time and wrap this up. Such a great conversation. Thank you. If somebody were to just tune into this last little part of it, what is your advice or guidance, a little 2-second takeaway that you have for those people tuning in?
I'll go first. I'll go first. You want to go? I'll go real quick. I would just say I will leave it at there's no honor in suffering in silence. There is none. The suffering is only going to lead to destruction, whether you kill yourself or you ruin your family, you ruin your marriages, you ruin your relationships. And sometimes being in that dark place, feeling like you have nothing to lose and that it's probably be easier if you weren't around. Understand that there's more destruction that's left behind. There's no honor in it. Like, nobody's doing a memorial run for you next year. There's no GoFundMe for you or your family. And if there is, nobody's donating. The funerals are awkward. They're weird. Everybody knows you killed yourself. There's no hiding it. There's no honor in suffering. The people that love and care about you are the only ones that suffer, and you going and getting the help. Although it's something in our profession, a lot of times it's frowned upon, it's looked down upon, it looks like you're weak. It's actually the hardest thing to actually do. It's one of the hardest things to do. And then once you get better and you get healthier and you feel like you can conquer the world, the second hardest thing is to restore all those relationships that you fucked up. Um, but it gets better and it gets easier and you get stronger, your family gets stronger, and you're worth it. You're worth it, your family's worth it. There's no honor in suffering in silence.
I want to echo that because we have another episode that'll be by the time this episode comes out, it will have already come out, but um where we dive into suicide and with some people that have been all the way to the edge and literally just did not pull the trigger and now they're advocating for it. Very powerful conversation, but one of the things I want to say is a lot of times, so some people when it comes to the suicide part of it, a lot of times we just think somebody's depressed. In first responder and military culture, there's almost like a warrior mindset, a protect and serve mindset, where your job is to protect and serve your community and your family from a problem or a threat. And now, if you see yourself as the problem, the quickest way in a unhealthy mind is, well, you're going to remove the problem so that you're protecting everybody else. And that is if you're thinking that, or you're in that, or you understand it, that is an ass backwards way of looking at it. And that is a huge red flag indicator that you need to reach out and talk to a wellness professional of some sort. Because to echo what you're saying, when you take yourself out, you're not solving the problem. It's energetic shrapnel. You're just taking all that pain and you're actually magnifying it tenfold and handing it to other people to deal with your shit. Whereas it seems scary to go and deal with your shit, but it's actually not as bad as what you think it is in your mind once you get into the healing journey. So, on that note, Vance.
So I'm gonna do two because sometimes I'm an overachiever, but they're gonna be really, really short. All right, so here's number one. Find your thing. And what I mean by that is so many of us are so invested in our jobs and wearing that uniform, wearing that badge. I need you to do something that makes you smile. And it has nothing to do with your job. All right, so there's number one. Here's number two. I promise you're not by yourself. As much as it feels like you are in that hole and you are all by yourself and no one could possibly be as broken or damaged as you, there are folks that are out here that are walking among you that have been there and are literally willing to sit in the hole with you. Um, and that's where, conversations like this are really impactful.
You left me speechless, so clearly you nailed that one. It's hard to get me to not say anything. Yes, 100%. So as my last little 2 cents for this is we have unpacked a ton. My biggest thing is if you are in it, if this is resonating with you, reach out, whether it's to us, to them. Again, go to our comment section on YouTube or in any of wherever we post it. We're across all the platforms. So if you go into the comment section, all of the resources that we mention, their contact information, our contact information, all will be there. So it's very quick. If you are a spouse or a department that is dealing with someone who is in active addiction and you're not quite sure what to do, again, reach out. Also understand when somebody is hurting and they're in a dark space, you have to make it easy. Breathing is hard. So they're not going to click multiple links. They're not going to go to your apps to go to a link to find a resource to call and they're not going to do it. You might have to do it, especially if your spouse or family member, you're going to have to do it for them and get them there. And sometimes, again, kicking and screaming, but get them there. Tough love. When it comes to active addiction, I'm so nice and my rule in life is don't be a dick. However, when I work with active addicts, I become the biggest dick because I'm not going to take any of the lies, any of the justification. We're going to kick your ass through this and get you the help that you need. So that's my last little mic drop. Don't be a dick. With all of that said, thank you guys again for being open to sharing, for the work that you guys are doing to help others. For those listening, thank you. If you have any questions or comments, reach out. And until next week.